I'm going to start by working with this image. I've laid out some paper and I'm going to mask off some areas to get some really sharp lines. I'm going to start this painting with acrylics, and I'm not going to be using the actual colours that were present in that photograph, which were really kind of boring beige colours. Instead, I'm going to choose a different palette altogether, mainly inspired by the colour of my table. So some warmer tones. And you'll see that by masking you get these really lovely sharp lines. I'm using a painter's tape that I just got from Bunnings, so it's quite inexpensive. The thing about masking though is you have to be mindful of your layers and which areas might not be fully dry yet before you paint over them. So I guess this is what you would call minimalist geometric abstraction. There's all different kinds of abstraction. And in this case, I'm looking at very clean lines. Now, it's not exactly the same as my drawing, but I'm not too worried about that. I'm just going to go with the flow. Continuing on, I'm letting layers dry and I'm masking over the top. And I'm going to play with colour a little bit here. I'm going to add a bit of a complementary tone to my red by adding a little bit of this lurid green to see what happens to the tonal balance. And I'm not too worried because we're still experimenting at this stage. Ooh, it's come up with quite an interesting murky brown colour, which really might dull down the brightness of the harmony, but I'm interested to see what happens. And because these are small, I'm happy to make lots of them and see how they relate to each other as a whole. An interesting tonal shift there. And on this final end, I might create a little bit of a gradient just to break up the whole geometry of things. So I'm going to start with a darker red and then blend back into it quickly with a pale pink in my acrylics, using a kind of a dry brush effect, just lightly blending them while they're still wet. Just darken up that red a little bit more. Interesting. Okay, those layers have dried now in the acrylic, but I'm curious to see what would happen if I glazed over the top with oil paint and again furthered my little exploration into colour harmony. So I think I might glaze over this section here. And as you can see, I've strayed quite a long way away from my original drawing, but that's okay, this is the process. I'm going to use some of our low toxic paint medium to glaze with. And I'm just going to use a little bit of that and tint it with this beautiful magenta that I happen to have in my paint box. And see what that layer of transparent glaze does to the image. It may work, it may not, but let's see. Okay, I'm using a softer brush because I'm glazing, just because I don't want streaks through the glaze. That's quite pale. I might add a little bit more paint, just because I want a little bit more saturation in that glaze. Hoping it doesn't bleed through there, but it may. Maybe a little bit more saturation. Okay, that's kind of nice. Let's see what that effect has created. It has bled a little, but that's okay. I can tidy that up with my other brush and just make it a little softer edge. It's kind of nice. Now I might see what happens if I glaze in my complementary colour again, and I'm using this beautiful brilliant green. Let's just see if that makes any dramatic effect on the painting. This is a really bright saturated colour. And I'm just going to go freeform. Oof. It's quite an interesting colour. I like the idea of glowing that in and not creating a sharp boundary on this particular edge. So as you can see, I'm really sort of seeing how I go as I go. The plan with the original photograph was to give me somewhere to start, a springboard, and now I'm really playing and having fun. And it's sometimes hard to know when to stop with an abstract piece because it's not like you're copying an image, but you'll find that the more you make the images, the more that you make, the better that your instincts will be about when the painting's done.